What is the deal with the gospel of prosperity? And more specifically, for our purposes here tonight, why does it seem to be a big problem for Black people? Y'all, tonight's topic is going to be very, very interesting. Join us right here on Black Freethinkers. Welcome back to Black Freethinkers. Yeah.
I miss the wig and the belt.
Me too. I miss everything. I've been thinking a lot about it. You don't even know.
Man, there was that one song you used to sing, like
I know, Sexy Boy.
Yeah, Sexy Boy.
I know. We gotta bring it back. We gotta bring it back.
We're in before you and me have met. People were talking to me about you. I subbed, and then the first time I see you, you're in the middle of your Sexy Boy. I was like, all right, we have fun here.
Let's just say we're in the middle of negotiations with creative. There's plans of brewing. Y'all, I am so happy to be joined tonight by the lovely Maya Adkisson. Maya, tell the people where to find you and what you've been up to.
Oh my God, I'm at Maya Adkisson, which I should probably put in the box here. But yeah, you know what? I'm here right now. I'm having fun. I'm trying to get the stench of the workday off me. You can find me right here, right now, with you.
Yeah, right. we're here.
Yeah.
Now today is an interesting one. We don't do a ton of reactions on this show, but we're actually going to be doing a reaction, and it's because I don't even know what my reaction is, honestly. Okay, so y'all, let me tell y'all what's going on, because this is just so interesting.
Something happened today?
No. It is recent though. I don't know exactly time. I think it's like maybe the last week or so. I'm not really sure. All right, but here's what happened. Apparently, some larger apologist. And I can't even, this one I think people will recognize. I think her name's like Melissa Doherty or something like that. I hope I'm getting that right. They're having a conversation about the gospel of prosperity. Mm-hmm. And apparently it comes up that this seems to be uniquely prevalent and problematic amongst Black Christians.
What?
Yes.
Are they sure?
Yes. And so, okay. and so then we have a Black Christian responding to them, mm-hmm. and he's kind of like agreeing with them.
Okay.
And there are some things there that I think are definitely worth talking about.
Sure.
But I also think there's some internalized racism going on.
Well, I mean,
surprise.
Right. I can't even be surprised about that. I mean, which you clearly aren't either, but like amongst the stuff that's rampant in the Black community is through lack of education, a lot of things that I don't even think Black people realize they're doing, but it's, you know, because the right owns the narrative, you know,
yes,
the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and I think we're definitely going to get into that because that's definitely where a lot of my thoughts have been, and also I'm gonna go straight for it and tell y'all how this relates to some of the stuff I've been dealing with, like even with my family. But I wanna show this to set it up, and then we'll jump in. So I think I got the setup so that okay, look, we got another scene.
I'm invisible.
Now I had to bring Maya up, okay, and I think we can roll from here.
I think I've seen this chick before.
Yeah, I think this is Melissa Doherty, and she's talking to some other people. But the person who made this video is called the Smart Christians Channel. I think it's called. There's a link in the description. Yeah, it's literally called Smart Christians Channel. I didn't exaggerate how bad the name is. That's how bad the name is. Okay. All right, let's go.
Well.
Also, shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate y'all for coming out. Much love to, of course, PC always holding us down. Maya's in the chat because she's an omnipresent goddess who can multitask.
I live for the side chat.
Kip Davis is here, so we're famous. Always good to see Sarah.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
It's going to be controversial, and I don't know if you've talked about this.
Did you hear what these two white ladies said about black folks?
This seems to be especially prevalent in majority black churches.
And guess what? They were right.
Uh-oh.
Is it?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Okay.
So that's the setup. That's the setup.
Okay, I'm just gonna have to hear the argument because like my mind won't even go anywhere that like would make that make sense right now. So
Okay. So all right. So before we do that, let me just tell you the tie into my own family thing, because that's why all this just jumped right out to me.
Of course.
So some of y'all remember I told y'all I handle Christmas very differently this year with my family. The short version is I went home for Thanksgiving. I was very excited to be home with my family. Normally, my family gives me the, hey, Jason's here. We're not going to do all the prayers and stuff, you know. But they did. I got incredibly uncomfortable. I had one of those y'all are worshiping the monster moments.
You broke that out over the holidays?
I didn't say it.
Okay.
But that's what I was.
Well,
no, but I felt it. Like
I'm pretty sure you say it in your sleep, though.
Yeah, but you know how normally, like when you're at family events or even just religious activities, you can kind of just go along with prayer, and in the moment you just say the words and get it over with. And this was one of those moments where it all hit me, and in my mind it was like not safe. It was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I was having too much metacognition in that moment, y'all. But anyway, I decided what to do was not make a big stink about Christmas. So I just didn't come to Christmas. And then I came over the day after Christmas to explain why I didn't come home for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I felt like that was like, I'm gonna let y'all do y'all thing, and then we're gonna talk after. Okay, so when we were talking after, I did kind of lay it out there. And it was kind of the opportunity for me to have the conversation with my family about not only do I not think these things are true. I actually think, it's a little evil. It's a little on the not good side. Anyway, that ended up being a whole big thing. But
you don't say.
What was interesting related to this was when they first started responding to my admitted quite long laundry list of complaints about Christianity, they started with this thing, which was like so weird because I don't know if y'all figured this, but my mom and her husband, they're black. So they were like, she was like, yeah, we've been thinking a lot about a lot of the things you say. And we do realize there's a lot of problems in the church. And that's especially the case with the black church. And it just threw me like a fastball from a major league pitcher because
black church as opposed to what white churches has she like?
Okay, that was the issue. Okay, like so she grew up under the thumb of my grandparents. My grandparents are the fundamentalist Pentecostal type you see in blaxploitation comedies. Okay. And she moved in her adult life, like while she was raising me. Of course, we grew up in different areas. I grew up in the Poconos. You know, we went to like a very well mixed non-denominational church. Okay. And I went to all white Catholic schools. So over time, I think in her adult life, she moved even from those, like the church I grew up in, which was incredibly diverse, actually. It's one thing I had to give the church I grew up in. It was very, very diverse. And had people of color in leadership. People of color were the leadership, but still a diverse church. It's been like white mega churches since then. So I was thrown because it was kind of like, but y'all not really part of the black church to be, you know what I'm saying? Like hurling.
You're part of a white mega church.
Yeah, like y'all don't. Now, see, now to be honest, I don't know if they're doing that right now. My suspicion right now is that they're still in their couch Christian phase. Like,
yeah,
they did the couch Christian thing during COVID and stayed there. But yeah, but the church they were a part of, and the churches I've like visited with them and stuff.
Go to black churches.
No. They go to. Nah. We not in the church they go to. I'll put it this way: they church was as white as the churches I would play for college ministry. Matter of fact, I would comment on it. I'd be like, "Ma, I could." I go to like I play for like an all white college ministry, but I could play at your church any Sunday, no prep time, no nothing. Okay. Because again, it's not the catalog. They're not doing gospel music. They're doing contemporary Christian, white, evangelical, mainstream Bethel style worship. I think
that's going to get most people in. Sure.
Yeah. So it was interesting from that perspective. And then also just the to me, felt like internalized racism, like to not see that you're denigrating your own people. And it felt weird as a black atheist to want to come to the defense of the black church, almost like, wait. You say you don't think the people that enslaved us and forced this upon us, wait, they the ones that got this right somehow? Like, what are we saying right now? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? So that's why this whole thing is like so weird, because in some sense, I do want to talk about the gospel of prosperity and how it harms black people, especially given what you were saying, Maya, like the tie to our lack of resources, be them financial, education, cultural, and enfranchisement, the whole 9 yards. That's definitely part of it. And to understand that unique vulnerability. At the same time, I feel the need to be corrective and being like, who do you think we're emulating in that type of behavior? Why do you think the other folk are getting it correct? And then finally, the thing I think that really gets overlooked in conversations about the gospel of prosperity, which is something that Darante has talked about in his recent videos, but I think about a lot, which is the actual gospel itself and the message of Jesus as presented in the Bible is inherently one of economic exchange. It is one of a promise of material wealth and material well-being. Even the fact that, to me, eternal life is the ultimate payoff, right? There's literally, you could offer me the idea, at least anyway, would be no matter how many trillions of dollars you offer me, that's not worth eternal life, right? And so I think there's been this critique of the gospel of prosperity because it's, quite frankly, in vogue to be critical of it, that overlooks the fact that, to me, the philosophy of the faith itself lends itself to this.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about prosperity gospel. I had heard of the people, but I didn't realize what a whole thing the prosperity gospel was, or even heard of the prosperity gospel. Because remember, I wasn't like you. I was born and raised Catholic. My parents sent me to Catholic school, not because, it was an added benefit that I got a better education, but it's to indoctrinate me. So
Oh,
like,
really? So mine was the flip. Mine was
yeah.
like, oh, we're sending you to Catholic school because that's where you have the really high college acceptance rates, and you're going to be in a smaller environment. So they thought there'd be less behavioral issues, which I largely agree. Which is
No,
interesting.
my parents were not forward thinkers.
And but then I think for them it was like, well, we're Christian, so if we're Catholic and you get some Jesus smarts in there too, then that's good. Whereas your family was like the opposite. They were like,
Mhm.
we need you to go to the good
To
Jesus
indoctrination
school,
school, yeah.
and if you could read
So
and write good, that's an added
yes,
bonus.
yeah, my well, my grandmother, her mom died during the Depression. She went to a convent or whatever. She was raised by nuns, so she went to Catholic
Wow.
school. And you get out, and you're not, as a Black person, you're not really surrounded by a lot of other Catholics. But she is a very devout Catholic. She wanted her son to be a devout Catholic, so she sent him to Catholic school. And he's just like, I don't like it, teaching people about religion. That's nuns' work. I'm gonna, I do want my kids to be good Catholics, but I'm gonna send them to Catholic school because our whole family was Baptist, and you're off playing around the way like everybody's Christian, but they're not Catholic. And I did know a lot of Catholics, but that was just from being in Catholic school. And the schools have different, like a bunch of events where they come together and you meet people throughout the city. But like it in your day-to-day life, especially as a Black person, that wasn't like a thing. And then so like they don't talk about any of this. Like they take a vow of poverty, like, I mean, and looking over the history of Catholicism, I'm not sure that becoming a priest or a nun is an actual vow of poverty, but they do take the vow.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, ties just in Catholic Church, and I'm sure it used to be very different in the Middle Ages, but they did not talk about tithing. They did not like try to shake you down for money in the church. Like it was never talked about at all. So this is like a whole new world where people are just like using Jesus to get cash. And I don't know. I don't know that it would have played well with a lot of the people I knew. So it's interesting hearing about people who are more or less betting the lottery. If I give this, God will give me something back. Well, maybe God will give me something back. Or if I bet that, maybe God will give me something back. The Black people I knew, they would just sooner not go to church than be shamed out of the few pennies they managed to scratch together after the paycheck.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know what? That's always considered like the real ones. I ain't going nowhere on my time off where somebody gonna be asking me to come up off this scratch. There's a lot here. All right, let's try to jump and see what they say,
Okay,
so we
I'm
can hear a
sorry.
little bit of this argument. No, Maya. There's so many great comments. But yeah, let's get a little bit of this and we'll keep going. Oh, I done messed up.
Allie Beth Stuckey and Melissa Doherty. I think Allie Beth is interviewing her about Melissa's book. What they get to, though, is something that we've talked about before. I've said this privately and publicly. There's an issue that seems to be running rampant. It's like an epidemic in not just the Black community, but you see it primarily, or you see it magnified in the Black community. You also see it amongst women and amongst people of color. But you can rest assured that where there is something that's unbiblical, something that's ungodly, something that's prosperity gospel-ish, those sort of things, the foolishness that we see, you're going to see it a lot of times in the Black community. Some folks are going to get offended by that. Be offended. Doesn't matter. She brings it up. That is Allie Beth in talking to Melissa. They can't put their finger on it, but I will.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
It's going to be controversial. And I don't know if you've talked about this, because a lot of the theology, obviously we see it in all different kinds of churches, all different kinds of places.
Sure.
This seems to be especially prevalent in majority Black churches.
Oh.
There's a lot of prosperity preaching, but
She's
lot
like,
of, as you're
oh.
talking, I'm like, I've heard that a lot. You are divine. You are a queen.
Yeah.
You are, a goddess, something special. And
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever talked about the roots of that or
Where's
why.
she getting this from?
Interesting you bring
Wait.
that up.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, she's like, this happens to be something that this woman has never stepped her ass into a Black church. So, I mean, much less so much that she can, like, even anecdotally come up with, I see this in the Black church and not that. I mean, did I miss the survey?
You know what? That is a really good question. And I don't know if they talk about their exposure, but this is a whole fascinating area where you and I know the reality is that so many people are not in community with Black people in real life at all, but they have very strong impressions of Black culture and Black communities and Black people. And so then the question is like, where are you getting this from?
That's what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, in no way do I mean, like, I try to give her the benefit of the doubt. Like, you read this somewhere, right? But I mean, we all know. God.
So what's interesting for me too is I wonder. Obviously, I think some of this you do see in pop culture. I think some of this is the fact of who represents Black Christianity, and it tends to be a more limited set of figures, and those are certainly known as gospel prosperity pastors. So when you have your T.D. Jakes, your Creflo Dollars,
this is only 2.0.
people. Well, that's what I'm saying. So for a lot of people, that's it. And then if they're gospel of prosperity guys, then
and I'm not taking that from them, but like it's two guys. But
then that's everybody.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, so like off the top of my head, I'm just thinking, there's Kenneth Copeland, Joel Osteen. There's even the chick,
Mike Murdoch. Yes.
Grace,
yes.
Is it Grace? Oh man, I can see her face, but I can't.
I know who you're talking about.
And then there's the and strike. She's another one of them. I'm like, my God, like I just like who are all these Black people that are contributing to their communities en masse like that?
Yes.
I
don't. Yes, and it's so funny too because
I kind of wish we were doing that, like, but also pressuring the church to get back to the community. Like, if we could pool our resources in that way, it could be. I mean,
I'm with you, Maya. I've recently realized that, like,
we did,
I'm actually realizing if they were literally about the sort of socialism Jesus, the nice cuddly one that we all know and love, if they like, we couldn't do anything to stop them from making the world a better place. Like, we would actually be like, I hate to say this, I thought the other day, I'll go to church. Look, Christians, I'm just being honest with you. You give us socialized medicine, free healthcare, free education, and like a decent standard of living that's just a straight up national minimum wage that you just get for just existing. I'll go to church on Sunday, hear what I got to say. I'll give y'all an hour. I'll give y'all an hour weekly. Because I will tell people straight up, y'all live in a Christian nation, and I got to tell you, it is sweet like that.
Look, I'm telling you, everybody, whenever I start talking about commie Jesus, that's what's up. I'm like, this man was really walking around making sure that everybody had health care, nobody went hungry, like I'm just like more,
like, give it to me, Christians, make me love it.
Right.
Make me love it.
What I get is this guy with, this amosexual that hates, everybody in the LGBT community, plus Black people, like that, wants to, just God, hateful, jacks off of seeing immigrants be deported.
Yes.
And I'm really trying to figure out where this guy was. The Old Testament God is not nice.
No.
But you see more of these attributes in the Jewish community than you do in the Christians. And it's almost like they don't read their own book.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And so then there's two other sources I think are interesting here, which is one is the way that sort of the apologetic scene has developed. And I think there's a space in there that sort of has also made it popular to denigrate gospel of prosperity preachers. And I think, again, I
don't know if you remember, but there was a wave of Christians coming out against the prosperity gospel not too long ago.
Yeah, I think we're still largely largely riding that. And then I think what also goes along with it is there's always been a denigration sort of Black denominations, like you said, because of the interactions with class and education and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And so there's always been the look at that silly stuff those charismatics are doing. Matter of fact, the I hate to say this, y'all, but the term charisma and charismatic gifts is low-key a dog whistle for racism in white churches. I don't know if people are aware of this, but it's a thing to me that's like so obvious that it's like, I can't believe I haven't even like talked about this more until now, because it's just that common. Like when you are in a white congregation, because think about it, there's certain things that they don't do, right? Like their services are very dry, and like even at the most sort of into it, I guess you could say, they'll get is like the sort of rock band, really emotional worship stuff. Like that's like high, you know, show kind of like concerty Christianity, right? But that's as far as they'll take it. They're not going to do, unless they're Pentecostals, there are a lot of white Pentecostal congregations, but they're not going to do things like laying on of hands, speaking in tongues, falling out in church, all that type of stuff. And so they denigrate those things as being somehow like less holy or less like the right type of Christianity. And often it gets coded as the things you see in those crazy Black churches, or I hate to say it, but like it's almost like the denigration of whites who they associate with Black traditions, right? So it's also a way to crap on like white Pentecostals who they think are emulating that. You see what I'm saying?
So, wait, what's a charismatic gift?
Okay, so charismatic gift, great question. So charismatic gift are basically the things proper white folks don't do in church. So speaking in tongues, laying on of hands, interpreting tongues, prophecy, and then even to a certain extent, like leading worship, right? Like the way you lead worship in a white church is very much supposed to be everything centered around Jesus. It's a performance, but we're not performing, right? We're on a platform. Like the musicians, like what makes me good in a lot of settings, especially for white folks, is discipline. It's like I play the songs like they're played on the record. I'm not doing a whole bunch of fancy gospel chops. So even the way we play the music is considered very different. Like when you're in a Black church, the musicians are getting off, like they're showing how talented we are, how much we practice. We're throwing in all sorts of crazy stuff. And that's believed to be showing off our gifts. That's supposed to be like God has given us talent. There's a reason that talent allows us to be the ones up in front of people leading worship, right? And then we're showing the great gifts of God in our ability to play the music. And same thing with vocalists, you know, they're doing the runs and the changing the keys and all that type of stuff. You don't see them doing that in a white worship service. And that's why, because all that stuff is supposed to be putting emphasis on the individual and their charismatic individual traits rather than truly chase spiritual gifts, which are only used in service of giving God glory. And so that's how you talk about it. Like, oh, we just don't believe in, we don't do those things. Like it's a different like aesthetic, right? But it ends up being like sort of looking down your nose at those Christians over there, right? And then there's the cultural interaction where a lot of that stuff is associated with Black churches, because that's what happens in your Pentecostals and your African Methodists and your Episcopal churches and things like that. So it all gets wrapped up in there.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And you definitely don't have that stuff in the Catholic Church, right? So
no.
Yeah, they're all
Black
the way
church
dry.
is kind of I mean, there's the do's and the don'ts and the, you know, what is and isn't proper, but it is kind of more of like when you were talking, it reminded me of that, like that hierarchy. Like we must have the prim and proper ways, and this is how I know who's better than whom, you know. And not in Catholic Church. This was like I said, I left Catholicism in around the year 2000 after we found out what the church was
the
covering
scam.
up.
Yeah.
So then I went to non-denominational churches, but yeah.
I lived through it. I was in Catholic schools and Catholic high school, and we had priests move into our school, shuffled from elsewhere, and have certain reputation following them and engaged in certain things, and then shuffled out of our school and onwards. And so when that stuff started coming to light, honestly, we didn't even feel the need to talk about it, because we knew it was happening. There was no. I mean, honestly, I could just tell you, as a Catholic high school student at the time, it was absolutely true. We knew it. Like we knew who they were. And again, we knew, because again, most of the priests in our lives in our schools, even the schools I went to, I have to say that they were unique Catholic schools in the sense that they were both always associated with like seminaries.
Okay. Yeah.
So run by literal priests and nuns.
Mm-hmm.
And so you knew as students who were the long-term people, like who were people that I went to school with, who the English teacher was around when their parents went here and their aunts and uncles went here. Okay.
Yeah.
Versus who's that dude with the reputation for touching kids that just showed up this year out of nowhere and then is gone next year after we hear more stories about touching kids. Like, come on. We like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how, like, we obviously we know what's going on here. Yeah, that's just how it was. Just keeping it real. All right, here we go.
That is a controversial question, especially today's political climate.
What they're saying is, because here we are, two white ladies talking about what's happening in the Black community. Rest assured, somebody Black, someone's going to come back and say that you can't say that. But I can say it. I can say what I'm saying, or that I'm going to say about the Black community. If you haven't noticed, I happen to be Black. And I happen to be bald also. That's just a little cherry on top. But what you're going to notice, what I'm saying, it's true. You can say what you want to say. You can be bothered by it. But what I'm going to tell you, it's the truth.
He ain't lying.
That's right. But I guarantee there's a lot of people watching that are like, Allie's not wrong. You know, there's something there. And I was reading Kate Bowler's book. Do you know who that is? Yeah. And
here we go, Maya.
A whole section on this that she talks about with the Black church and the prosperity gospel and all these other theologies that kind of entered into the Black church. I mean, Carlton Pearson is one of them. Carlton Pearson was a Pentecostal Word of Faith preacher, Reverend Ike. And both of them were very off when it came to a lot of their teachings. That's like an origin there in that regard. I haven't looked too much into it, but you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I have friends. I have a friend, in fact, we've talked many times. She's Black and she talks about this a lot on her. She's in ministry as well on her channel.
Friend.
And
totally qualified to discuss everything about the Black church.
What's up with this?
Yes.
Why? Why is this a thing?
I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out who these people are. I'm seeing some of these books. Yeah. Kate Bowler's definitely giving me strong vibes of caucasity. We'll say that.
Like,
what do you all think? What do you?
Pretty
you
bright.
Notice it?
Lighter than most of my
White
folks.
You can
by a
chime
long
in.
way.
There is no
We'll see.
ostracization of you because you are not Black. You can chime in. I know you've seen it. When you see some of these people that we think about, some of these charlatans, they might either be Black or they might be white. But then when you pan the camera to the audience, you're going to see one, Blacks. You're going to see, obviously, you're going to see a lot of women, and you're going to see people of color. You'll see the reason why, and they all have the same thing in common. As a matter of fact, the question that they're asking is, why is that? Well, I'll tell you why.
What doesn't he seem okay? He about to give us his reason, so I'm gonna let him speak. But isn't he seem really? Doesn't it seem weird a bit that he keeps emphasizing women, Black people, people of color. And the funny thing is, the first criticism, if you really, we talked about the same black people, I call it real ones, I love to rather stay home and keep their money on Sunday morning, right? Which is funny because the first criticism people have within the black community of the black church is about the gospel of prosperity. It's the people like, I'm not going to that church. I don't know if y'all know this, but the pastor has the nicest car, the nicest house, the best looking wife and everything else. And
I do remember that. I remember like when like I wouldn't even have to talk about like I was one of those people that would talk about like, oh, you know, this is my church and this is what we're doing and you should come. It was more like, you know, you would ask me what I was doing and like church was part of it.
Right.
And so it came up just like if I were to say, work or, you know, when this girl from church. And I'm like, oh, what church do you go to? What kind of car your pastor drive? I bet he got a big house. I can't tell you how many times I heard that.
Wow, that's interesting. So I come up to you and I talk to you, and just because I think you're black and you believe in Jesus, you must have one of them pastors that, wow, that's crazy. Like they ain't
not
like,
from white people, from other black people.
Right. Well, okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And the thing to me is the criticism was always that those black pastors were emulating whiteness. Okay. So it seems right, because the criticism was like, come on, like you like the pastor seemed like he not like what he really trying to do. Even us, like we thought. Like the non-denominational pastor that was the leader of my church, that he was doing too much. He was doing too much empire building. It was always like seeing some big mega ministry and like wanting what they have. So, you know, in other words, like black folks were starting to notice that they pastors were trying to do this. You know, we always had to have the building fund and we're always trying to do these things that seem like we're trying to build churches like they assume white people try to build these big, mega powerful churches. So it's just interesting that you would have that critique of black Christian culture, but not that even surface level understanding of how black folk really talk about it. Because most of them are going to talk about it like him, which is that's BS and that's not the true Christianity.
Right. Which was my understanding. Like black people, you know, I mean, my parents, my biological mom and stepdad, I mean, holy rollers. so many people in the church. And it's really I want to say for most Christians, black or otherwise, the whole prosperity gospel is seen as a grift.
Yes.
Just for money. They don't want to give it. They never give it back. You know, the churches weren't known for giving money back to the community. You know, maybe they do a car wash, you know, like during the summer, but or, you know, maybe they give away, you know, clothes to the poor or something, but like they're not putting money into the communities. You know,
the other thing
if
is
you're building schools, you're paying for it, right? Like it's not the cheapest school in the area either. So I don't know. Like, the pastors that were always talking about money were, and I don't know, again, anecdotal. Those were the ones getting side-eyed.
Yes. Now I think part of what's happened in changed, and it's especially the case for Protestants throughout my lifetime, is and even beyond it, older than me, the gospel of prosperity. I think part of the issue is it's become normative evangelical Christianity. And I think a huge part of that is, like so many things, mass culture is easy to export, right? Like, and even like we see with the internet, you know, religious leaders are quick to jump on whatever the new technology is to spread their message. And so whether it was the newspaper and then radio and then ultimately cable television, preachers were always trying to use the new platform to lead a revival. And so what happened then was the televangelist, the ones who had the biggest platform and were the most influential, were prosperity gospel preachers. They were the ones who realized, hey, I could preach my sermons to the whole nation, and I could be asking for donations and prayer exchanges with people all over the world. There was no need to limit myself to the local crowd, so to speak. And so I think as we were all growing up and growing in the faith, the people our pastors were trying to emulate were, in fact, gospel of prosperity preachers. It wasn't being talked about the same way. It wasn't cute, but that's just what it looked like to be a successful church.
Right.
And so I think that's a big part of this too. It just became what's normal and expected.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back here. I have a story to tell y'all too.
Just a
It's
little
kind of
teaser.
crazy.
It's for the same reason
Yeah, a little
that
teaser.
Muslims are easily influenced to become suicide bombers.
Whoa.
Huh? That
What?
makes sense, does it? I'll make it make sense just a little bit, though.
Like, how does this?
Sorry. Skeptic Haven doesn't in no way, shape, or form endorse the view of Muslims.
No.
According to the Smart Christians channel.
No.
It seemed like a very smart Christian thing to say, but
God.
Islamophobia is always a risk dealing with religious content. But yeah, we disagree.
We
To
disagree.
say the very least.
Hard disagree.
Hard disagree.
How do they square this circle? How do they make it so that, maybe in some of their churches that aren't Black have a different view on these things, but for the Black church is very different. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that you're wrong in that.
A lot of the prosperity preachers that I see, like we played a clip the other day and it was like kind of a funny clip, but it was this
Which
older,
one was it?
She was this older white lady. I had never heard of her or seen her before, but she's using a food analogy. She was like, when you need oil in order to fry all of these things, but
I saw that clip.
okay. And what oil do you use to fry bacon? Yeah, you don't need it. And it was like, you are your own anointing oil.
You see that a lot in Black churches, in the churches that take advantage of people who are weak as it becomes theologically, who are also troubled as it pertains to in their social economic status. And then she's about to bring up another lady who is good at conning Black people.
To give yourself power. So is this older white lady, but almost the entire congregation was Black. I don't know if people know who like Real Talk Kim is. She's got like over 1 million Instagram followers. She talks like that very prosperity preacher. Same thing. And she's just this like, 40-something white lady. Almost her entire congregation, it seems like, is Black. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just think that is interesting. And I wonder
what's the correlation there?
I wonder why specifically in majority Black churches that seems to be very prevalent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. That'd be an interesting thing to look into, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all know who Real Talk Kim is, or Real Kim Talk.
Wait, what's her thing? Like,
so
Black people use examples?
Yes, and that that there are popular Black Christian content creators who apparently their message is very gospel of prosperity. But again, this is just filtered through such a very interesting cultural lens, because again, I could show you so many gospel of prosperity preachers, the people who really did it, and are the jet setting crowd, because there's levels to this game, right? And a prosperity gospel Black preacher probably has nice suits, nice robes. I'm gonna talk about my grandfather. Drives a Cadillac, maybe has a secondary vehicle. He's doing okay for himself, even though in the case of my family members and a lot of Black pastors that I know, they actually get that income from their actual jobs, not their ministries. So let's take that into account. But then on top of that, when Kenneth Copeland is talking gospel prosperity, he's like, I don't want to take the old jet today. I want to take my new one because this is my third generation. You know what I'm talking about? Like we talking again. There's levels to the game, and when you pan out on their audiences, which some of them are literally filling arenas, some of them have forget the building fund. I'm gonna buy the Astrodome. Okay, you hardly see a Black person in sight.
Right.
So I'm just curious as to where they think this is where they think this is coming from, and why they think this is such a unique Black phenomenon. I think it's problematic in the Black community, like so many other things, because we have a lack of excess. We just don't have a lot of extra time, extra money, extra hope and energy to be playing these games. But it's problematic for me for a couple of reasons. One, again, it feeds into this narrative of the stories white Christians seem to be telling themselves about other believers, but then it feeds the internalized racism of believing that this is a problem specifically in the Black church, in a way as almost to say that it's not as big of a problem in the white church, which I think is an incredibly short-sighted and incorrect analysis.
I don't know. It's just very Fox News-esque, like talking
It
about
is.
like how they
It
talk
is.
about Black people. I remember just this one segment where they were trying to, during the Black Lives Matter protest, I was watching a clip of, I'm forced to watch it because it was in like a diner or something, and they had it on. And this lady was like, Black people complain about the police all the time, but when they're in trouble, who do you think they call? And I'm like, ma'am,
Yeah.
do you know how much? I mean, and I'm not saying me in particular or you, but for the Black people that she's referencing, it takes a whole lot to get them to call the cops.
It sure does.
Like a whole lot. The cops are not going to be nice. They're going to be mad that you called them, that you took them away from somewhere. And if you have something that requires paperwork, they're getting pissy. Then your entire neighborhood is getting mad at you for bringing the cops into it.
Yes.
It's one thing if they're driving through like they do, but and it's one thing if you're doing something that causes them to stop. Like they could forgive all that, but you actually called them and told them to come. You invited them into our area. Like, I mean, I don't even know how to explain.
Also, the veiled threat. So I don't like you talking about institutionalized racism. And if you're going to complain about institutionalized racism, then why don't you just deny yourself the protection of the only people authorized to protect you?
Right.
If you think it's racist, then why don't you just not avail yourself of the services any longer? Like, yes, that's somehow the solution.
No, I hear you. Which is probably where she was going with that. But I mean, it's just like, this, you know how they are. And I'm not trying to be racist about it. I'm just making a comment that all the women on Fox News are just very porcelain skinned and blonde hair and blue-eyed. And, they just know all the inner workings of like inner city ghettos.
Yes.
And that's where they can, tell their rural community what we are really like. And I don't know. It's just like that. I don't know. Like her talking right now just really reminds me of watching that.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm gonna also take this to two other places. So one is probably kind of what you were saying in the very Fox News way. This definitely gives me the same vibes of dealing with the election and things that happen, where there really was no space permitted. Let's be clear. There was no space permitted to bring our issues to the forefront.
Right.
We were not allowed. Let's be clear. There was no tolerance during the campaign to even mention things like race, sex, gender, class, genocide. None of it. None of it was given, not a single moment in the sunlight by definition. But then afterwards, all of those same groups had to watch largely white liberals say, we took it too far. And actually now let's speak to those women, to those minorities, to those LGBTQ folks, to those working people. See what you did? Yeah. See what you did? You wouldn't shut up about the woke. You wouldn't shut up about the DEI. You wouldn't shut up about your needs. You wouldn't shut up about how unfair things are. And we lost because of you.
Yeah.
And this feels like very much the same thing. Like you have never cared to center us in the least bit, but now you are rushing to give us your expert level analysis of the issues in a community that you have never demonstrated any concern or genuine participation in any way. And that part is problematic. And I'm going to say this to be clear about something. We cannot get where we need to go without solidarity.
Yeah.
Which means, folks, I'm pulling you into the conversation. If you are out there and you're white, I need you to talk about race, because we can't do nothing if you keep excusing yourself from the conversation. But you have to understand that by nature of the conversation and your perspective, this is a conversation that you need to be the passenger in, you need to be the support system in, you need to be along for the ride in gaining an education, not crowning yourself the expert and now going to tell the rest of us what time it is. And we see this across the board. So I need y'all to stay in the conversation, but be willing to consider taking a different role.
Right. Yeah. And I've been saying this a lot, like a whole lot lately. I'm like, I because a lot of well-meaning white people, they're like, well, it's, it's the girls' time, or it's, it's time for the LGBT, or it's time for the Black people to speak. And I'm like, no, like we have too many cishet white men at the, already at the table. You're going to have to talk them into letting us sit there with them. Because when we come in, we just sound like we're crying and, that we want to take all their money. Like, that's all they hear. We need somebody to say, hey, no, it's cool. Listen to her or him or, whomever. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm doing a lot of complaining right now. And it's not because she's speaking of a Black injustice. It's because she's making shit up.
Right.
And it's not, nothing she's doing is uplifting us. It's just like, hey, what's wrong with the darkies? Like this
right. Which again is not being honest about where we're getting it from, which is then excusing the culture that you're participating in for its role in getting us here to begin with. Now, the other thing that's part of this is this man reminds me painfully of my mother's husband. It's the bald head, the demeanor, everything. I think my mom's husband's a little cooler, but it definitely. What I want to get at is I think this dude is similar in the sense of he denigrates the Black church in its way, and I don't think that he is necessarily himself in community with Black folk, right? Because he's one of them content creators, the smart Christians thing. He's very much into the apologetics, and so this is the other problem, because in a sense he represents a similar demographic that we do, Maya, which is, there's a term for it, but it's basically like people of color who are accepted into white spaces and white communities. Mm-hmm. And there's a different level of behavior expected, right? There's people like that. We have to know how to navigate in different circles and adapt on the fly. And if you can't do that, then it becomes an issue and you can't be in those circles. Yeah. But at some level, if you get integrated enough, there's an opportunity, because those people will let you speak about issues. So the way I put it is, white folks will let us talk to white people about our issues with white people. And that's a unique situation for us, right?
Yeah, I was just saying this to somebody not too long ago too. And I actually threw you in there too. It's like where there's people like me and Jay, and it's almost like being bilingual. You know?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So when that's the case, you also need to be honest about that. Like I had to be honest about my upbringing and the type of churches I went to, type of schools I went to, and now like the type of jobs we had, the type of institutions we're a part of. So you need to be a certain degree of transparency of your involvement in relation to Black communities, right? And I feel like a lot of times it's on the political side, we call it cooning. It's a problem when you are a Black person who is now not necessarily in community with Black folk, but have a lot of negative things to say about Black folk, because you're going to get that same benefit we get, but you're not necessarily bringing the most authentically Black perspective or being transparent about the limits to your integration into the Black community. So it's like, oh, a Black dude said it, it must be true. But wait, that Black dude go to church with y'all. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So
I do.
He's criticizing from the same arm's length that y'all are. So it's crazy how they feed each other in that regard.
Okay, I'm not sure her name is. This is a lady who she exemplifies the foolishness, the stupidity in the Black community. Here is a woman who, and I'm not throwing these words out, but y'all have heard this term where they say someone is kind of trailer park-ish, whatever. Well, she's that. That's her. She is the kind of person who is loud, boisterous, and for some reason, she gets the attention of ignorant Black folks. I just call it what it is. You get mad at me.
She's ghetto. That's what you're trying to say.
You can reject because it's the truth. Here's a person who wants to kind of speak the lingo, or otherwise known as talking Black. Not a real thing, but again, people think that if you speak a certain way, if you have some sort of slang, some sort of urban type lingo, that's talking Black, trying to identify with Black people. She does that. She says it loud, and she is colorful in the clothes that she wears and the things she talks about doing. And that's appealing to a lot of Black people. As a matter of fact,
now I don't know if y'all are picking up on it, but it's so interesting because I brought it up before. You hear the coded denigration of charisma, the way she talks, the way she presents herself, the way she's dressed. And it's like, oh, well, some people, I guess, are into that. I guess some of these morons fall prey to how much you like the way somebody talks. You see, it's like this. It's because, again, he's picked up that same coded, the proper expression of our faith does not rely upon cultural markers and right? Like he's parroting the white supremacist narrative. And again, I'm a Black Christian, and I do get again, my grandfather's one of them fire and brimstone. And the Lord, he said, okay, yes, it's easy to poke fun at, but it's also the culture in the community of my people, of our ancestors, and there's a reason our people are the way they are, and it's not just we're silly and we're goofy and you need to entertain us for us to follow you. There's much deeper cultural differences that, to be honest, I have a ton of respect for, like the difference in oral tradition, the importance of song, and the way we brought traditions that are important to us, and we carry those forward, and we made Christianity our own. I don't agree, and I'm not part of the group, but I'm not going to allow it to tread into anti-Black racism and hatred of my own people. That's a game I'm not going to play. Not deliberately anyway.
I mean, I think it took me a while to be able to embrace Black American culture too, and like seriously into my 20s, because going to Catholic school, you get a lot of this, those people and narratives. And when I really realized just that it's a deep culture and it's being denigrated because of the skin color of the people who hold the beliefs or do the things, it was a lot easier just to be like, okay, well, this is, I don't see why this is any different than people wearing kilts or, traditional Indian garb or, whatever. It's just, it's
Yeah,
a form of
absolutely.
expression that we took on because we were separated from the mainline culture for so long.
Yes.
And it, like Al Trucker was actually saying, like, is he upset that people like their own culture? And I was thinking that
That's a great comment. Yeah.
and I was thinking that too. I'm just like, you're really upset because people won't, like, and we're talking about a culture. We're talking about the way you're raised. It is who you are. And I don't know what his problem is, that people are just supposed to like leave all that behind for Jesus.
Well, I think and this is part of the thing that I think has really happened, and this is my critique of this man in particular. Like if I were, to be friendly with him or something, I would say a couple things. So one would be, again, you really need to think about how the whole message of the church is fundamentally about the gospel of prosperity. This isn't an accident. It's a feature, not a bug.
Mhm.
But also that there really is a need, I think, for Black Christians, especially who are integrated into different congregations, to just not fall prey into the cultural denigration, because there is a way in which you're buying into again, like it. I talked about it being coded as anti-charisma. It also gets coded as high Christology. It gets coded in the aesthetics of denominational differences. Churches taking a sense of pride in what they do and what they don't do, and what that says about who they are. And one thing I can tell you about Black folks, especially as we get more upwardly mobile, so Black folks that have a little bit of money, a little bit of education, or upward mobility, and now they live in different neighborhoods.
Mhm.
There's often an association with class, right? And so you're now in a different class, and you associate the worship style and the aesthetics of your new class as being holier or more authentically Christian. But really it's just the church full of rich folks like to carry themselves differently.
Mhm.
That makes them think they better than the people falling out across the street. But if you really go to the faith and the tradition it comes out of, it's like most traditions, most major religions, comes out of poor people.
Yeah.
So, if you really get into the doctrine itself, it was a doctrine for illiterate people. So there's this sort of myth of this constructed Christianity that is practiced by super well educated people and people with a lot of resources, that makes them think that the faith itself is properly understood a manifestation of high culture. No, it's pro wrestling. It's a manifestation, something that comes out of common people. And common people didn't have sophisticated philosophies and worldviews and rational approaches to the supernatural. That's just, and so I think Black folks, in a sense, participate in some myth making about the differences between white and Black churches
Mhm.
that reinforces white supremacies in a way they're just not thinking about. If that makes sense. Sorry, there's a lot to follow. I appreciate y'all. Also, I want to tell this story real quick, y'all, because it showed, like, the gospel of prosperity, it was just common. So some of y'all may or may not know, but I had a Jesus wife, and that means somebody I married religiously but not legally. And it was interesting because I was working at a church at the time, and she wanted to come work at the church. She was visiting from a mission trip, and she was like in college, and she was leading like a high school mission trip to come work at our church. And what would happen is white people would come to the church and they fall in love. They spend a week serving black kids, and they decide they're gonna leave their whole life behind, move to the hood, and work at this church. And our pastor wasn't there, so it fell on people like me to talk people out of what I call the mission trip high. Like, look, we really live here. We really do this every day. You need to go back home, chill for a little bit, and realize you don't want to do this. She was quite serious about it. So anyway, I'm at home one night, getting ready to work at the church the next day or whatever, and Mike Murdoch comes on. Huge white gospel of prosperity guy, always talks about owning 7 homes and all this other type of stuff. And he's given his whole gospel of prosperity breakdown. Mike Murdoch's one of the famous gospel of prosperity speakers in the world. And he's talking about seed money, right? How you give this seed that you don't even think you can afford. I mean, that's the message. The message is literally you have to give something to God that you know good and goddamn well you can't afford to give. Right. And that's your seed. And then it is going to manifest in a gift. God's just going to blow you away with how much he blesses you. And he tells this story about how he sowed a seed of, I forget what it was to him. It was X amount of dollars. And it represented a lot of money. And he ended up meeting his wife as part of it. Mm-hmm. And his whole story was like, I didn't think I could afford it, whatever, but it ended up being nothing because that was my wife and blah, 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 blah. And I saw this. And after I saw that the who will become my Jesus wife was talking to me, and I realized she was serious, I couldn't talk her out of it, and she was going to end up coming to work here. And so I told the church to give her 1/3 of my salary for the summer, because she was going to have to raise her own support. And so it was only a few $1,000s, but it was like, you're going to need money. I'm going to help you get started. So she decides she's going to come here. I'm in love. Things be crazy. My mom sends me out to Colorado because she's going to move here. So I fly out to Colorado to drive her back, help her move her stuff here. And we stopped at my mom's house on the way back, and we're watching TV, and the same exact program comes on TV. Okay. The Gospel of Prosperity one from Mike Murdoch. Right. And he tells the story again about his wife. And that's when it hit me that I didn't even think about it when I was doing it, but I was like, felt like now I'm in the same, and now it all hit me. It all come full circle because I'm sitting here with her. I've now made it possible for her to be here. And she's now seeing the Mike Murdoch message with me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a sign. And I got down right there and proposed and gave her just this like ring that I had always like worn, just like gave her the ring like off my finger. Aww. Yeah. I say all that to say, y'all, like, I have fallen into this type of thinking. And it was a time when I was the deepest in my faith I'd ever been. I was working full time at a church. I had a great pastor in my life who was shepherding me. He was having me read books. Like, I was reading things like Counterfeit Gods by Keller. Like, I was reading books about how like you couldn't make all these false idols about money and all these things, turn them into God. So you would have thought I'm being actively coached against the gospel of prosperity. I can't fall for those like this because I'm literally being coached to be resilient to it. So I'm just showing you people really do fall into it. And again,
yeah, no, they do. And they have a whole bunch of like pomp and awe to make sure that you're, feeling the Holy Ghost and, led to want to give.
Yes. And
Darante actually talks about this a lot and like the stuff that he did at his church and to get people into that mood.
Yes. I've emptied my wallet into collection plates before.
Wow, that has never happened to me.
Yeah. Like, just said, whatever it is, God, you take it today and I'll figure it out. That's the preacher got, my grandfather even did that to me one time. I was mad. I said, Grandpa, I don't know what you did, but your preacher got good to me today. Yeah, I just gave you what I had. You know, but again, that's how I was probably raised to be and to think. And it's funny too, because even though I was, you know, in Newark, New Jersey, so people would say I was in definitely community color. I was working for a white pastor. She was white. Mike Murdoch's white. Like, again, the people that got me into that were in no way, shape, or form my complexion. So black people and anybody could fall into it. And again, like when you look,
even black people, especially black people. I think we know, like we tend to be, like, as a group, highly superstitious. But I don't know. We think about money differently, usually.
Yeah. People saying Mike Murdoch's still out there. Yeah, he making his streams. Yeah, he's on YouTube. He. Yeah, I still see him from time to time. Beyonce looks terrible. Wish him well. Hope he's in good health. Oh, hang on.
Never be the focus.
Look at this.
Should be the fruit. Listen to Proverbs 11:24. Give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything. I was probably one of the stingiest people because I was a single mama. When I lost everything, it made me scared of money. And so tithing was out of the question for me.
By the way, this is how you get people to give money. This is how you get folks to give money to you, because you say, I was stingy and I was struggling. Now I'm not stingy. I give tithes. I give money. And you do the same thing. You too can wear you one of these moo-moos. Is that what it's called? That has money on it, because it just typifies what I'm rolling. I'm rolling in the dough.
Through Griffin, and didn't do nothing wrong.
Oh my God, it
and
is.
I still got pulled over by the cops.
I'm sorry,
and
it's a money kimono.
Yes, it's a money kimono. Yes.
In fact, I was praising God that y'all can't do nothing to me.
For y'all that can't see, she's literally wrapped in a shiny dollar bill. Yeah.
And just like, don't be stingy. I need money. If you don't understand what I'm saying, look at me. Give me this. Like, what? This is insane to me.
It is. It is. And again, that vow of poverty that Jesus that said, give away all your wealth, y'all are just, nah. Even that mic, she got a like special silver, that mic expensive.
Oh. He said, no.
That ain't a normal mic.
You're getting the pullover law ticket. I said,
she
what
got the
that?
Bruno Mars
he
model.
Said, when you see a cop, you got to get as far as you can away from her. I can pull you over. And it's $565. And I went home and I said, Daddy, that's more than I make in 2 weeks. He said, baby, God gonna get his money. He said, the problem is you let your money have you. God don't need your money. The reason he said 10%, not 80, is because he says, if I can trust you with 10 cents on a dollar, then I can keep advancing you, growing you, and trusting you. I want you to be wealthy and not be afraid of making money.
God is not interested in you in being wealthy and making money. If you make money, if you're wealthy, fine. But that's not his goal. His goal is for you to glorify him. But you got people like this charlatan, this foolish woman, who will take advantage of equally foolish people, even more foolish people who seem to be worse off than she is, looking at her, wanting to get what she's gotten. These are people where the Bible says, ladies and gentlemen, the scriptures are here for a reason. And if you can't see you in this, it's because this is you. If you can't, what's the old saying? If you can't see the mark, it's because you're the mark. Some of you people are the mark. Some of you are the ones who are being taken advantage of, and they're looking at you. And the first thing they notice when they're looking for who can I take advantage of, they look at your skin color, because they assume the likelihood that you've gone through something and that you're desperate, and they take advantage of the fact that you are desperate. But what they're here to do is they are here to, in their greed, exploit you with false words. As a matter of fact, they're taking advantage of their greed, of your greed with their greed. They're not the only ones that are greedy. You are too, if you're falling for this. You have to be some sort of fool or probably both greedy person to listen to what you're hearing.
Desperate.
Some of these things are just that you hear.
Or desperate. Yeah. Or desperate. Or desperate.
Man, I'm sorry, I'm messing a lot right now. But like, it's just kind of amazing to me. Like he doesn't know any of these people. He doesn't know why you would, if they're looking at you and assume that you've gone through something, what does that mean? It means that you're hurting, that you're looking for any way out of your situation.
Absolutely.
That you are, and you're in that seat because you're praying that God will do it. You're at your most vulnerable. And he's over there, oh, you're just greedy. You're just stupid.
Yes. And it's going to be the people who are economically disadvantaged, who are most likely to be desperate. It's also going to be the people who, let's just say, the history of this country tried to ensure that they would not be educated, would not think for themselves, and would not learn to read and write, have a tradition in a faith tradition where, you know, they're not doing academic exegesis or going to the university to discover high Christologies. And so it's quite predictable again that people like this are going to be taken advantage of. And to be honest, this is something where I feel like we're missing the boat, because the real critique needs to be of institutionalized Christianity and its cultural hegemony, and the fact that this is what it's done to our people. But instead, it is Black folk are not doing it right. And then the solution is somehow they need to do more to really emulate the proper white Christians. And I think that's exact opposite of what people need to be told. So it's tough. It's a tough conversation.
Talking to, it made me realize like what the other woman was saying. And I don't know if he's going to get back to them, but I didn't realize like where she was going with, you know, there's this 40-year-old, you know, white lady, and she has all these Black people. And I think he just kind of laid out there, like, she's calling them stupid. I mean, which I kind of knew she was, but like, I didn't like realize how like, but like, I don't know, between listening to you talk and then like him talk, it's just like, I think that's like kind of what she was getting at. Like there's this white woman who's preying on Black people because they're stupid. And that's why she brought out that example.
Yeah. And now I'll skip ahead a little bit just because I don't want to be here too long, but he's going to show some examples from Black preachers now. So I think that's kind of good. Here we go.
Everybody about to get blessed. Everybody about to get blessed. Everybody about to get blessed. You got a blessing. You got a blessing. You got a blessing. I got a blessing. You got a blessing. You got a blessing. You got a blessing. I got a blessing. Everybody about to get blessed. Everybody about to get blessed.
Guess what? When you start worshiping and he start looking for
weird.
You, that's where he coming from.
That was weird. That's cringy.
This is weird too.
And he coming with the millions. And he's coming with the blessing. So he coming with the bag. He'll be coming with the bag when he comes. He'll be coming with the bag when he comes. He'll be coming with the bag. He'll be coming with the bag. He'll be coming with the bag when he comes.
How is it not embarrassing? How are you
It's
not,
pretty embarrassing.
You know what? I'm ashamed to be. I'm not saying you ought to be ashamed, but I don't want to be associated with these people. I don't want anyone, white, Black, Hispanic, or otherwise, to look at them and then look at me and say, hey, you know those people? Those your people? That. As a Christian, I'm embarrassed for them to even pretend to name the name of Christ. I don't think these people are Christian. They can't be. Their God is their
That's crazy.
Money. Let the Holy Ghost train you to ask for the right thing. Lord, I want a 2-story house. What is that? My house is almost 25,000 square feet. You can get lost in it. I had to get some speakers in there so I can find my wife. See, I live in it. I drive it. I live in it.
Yes, sir.
I drove a Maybach last night, Phantom this morning, and I'm in a Ghost tonight. In case you don't know what a Phantom and a Ghost is, that's Rolls Royces. But
Also the same thing, but okay.
See, I want to tell you, I don't never hide nothing from the body of Christ, and I'm not scared of nobody. God did it. You better not mess with me. I tell you so you know it can happen.
They brag about their wealth. They're unapologetic about their wealth. As a matter of fact, they'll come back and tell you that I was wrong for even worrying about how you would think about this prosperity gospel. No, I'm getting my money, and I even want my family to get their money too.
I called my son. I said, listen, go find that Rolls Royce. He said, how? I said, go find it. I don't care what you got to do. Just go around the nation in every state you got to. But you find that Rolls Royce. That was God's love that he was trying to show on me. And I let people bondage talk me out. And that was the year I got free from people, free from colored folks, free from church folks.
Wow.
I got free from white folks. I got free from everybody.
Now, you know, notice how he had to cover his tracks.
Right.
Notice how he covered his tracks. He really said what he meant to say, and then he said, "Oh, the free from all the other folks too." Yeah, they. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Look, y'all, I won't keep us here too long, man. Y'all get the point of where this is going. I won't keep it here at night, but this is very interesting because, like Maya said, like there has been a lot of talk about the gospel of prosperity, but this is a new interesting wrinkle where, and again, just to keep it nuanced, I want people to talk about how faith traditions manipulate people of color. I want people talking about the unique vulnerabilities that Black communities have, and that their continued exploitation in the name of religion is a real problem. But the conversation needs to be had in a way that isn't just dogging Black people for being Black and not being honest about that. This is a much wider trend in the cultural evolution of Christianity. And to be honest, Black folks and Black leaders are largely emulating what they see their white counterparts doing, the level of success they've had, and the material gains associated with it. And if you're not going to have that conversation, it kind of reminds me of Michael Beverly, where it's akin to the Christians who want to talk about how Christianity was so instrumental in ending slavery, but don't want to have any conversation about the role Christians may have played in the institution's formation.
Right. Nobody ever wants to talk about the Pope blessing slavery because people were second guessing it and doing that for the crown so that they could continue to, colonize the world.
The fact that there was a slave ship named Jesus, to me, tells people everything they need to know.
It just, people cherry pick all the time. It's cool. I mean, I say it's cool. I mean, it is.
It happens. It is what it is. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. We're so used to it.
But at no point did I not say the Black people don't do this. Isn't Kenneth Copeland like the #1 prosperity gospel, and Joel Osteen is like a
and they pull up on him at the airport hangar.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, and you would think that they would have like the most like abundant neighborhoods, if this were real, like there should be mansions on every, line in the streets. And
again, Joel Osteen's church is a stadium. Mm-hmm. And refused to shelter homeless people during a hurricane. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, and that was going to be my point. I'm like, these people can't even house the homeless, which they are called to do.
Right.
I
also think that part of it,
and I'm not trying to make this a black-white thing. I want to make it very clear. This is a people thing. This is a greed thing. This is just, it's one of the like kind of the worst part of like humanity kind of thing, to like hoard anything like that, to want to, or to use money and to hoard wealth and use money to set yourself up, to make yourself feel better, and to place yourself above on this pedestal. This is all ego driven. It's disgusting, and there's not. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll look into the stats on this. So it just even suggests that more Black people do this than white people. It doesn't even ring true to me. If there are more Black people that are engaging in the tactics, I could almost believe that, just because it, when you're dealing with and I'm not saying all Black people are poor. Don't get me wrong there. But when you are in the areas where you would need to do more like showmanship to get anything out of your congregation, these are going to be the poorer areas.
Yeah.
And if
And the lack of money is the dominating feature of life when you don't have enough of it.
right.
So people are going to be even more vulnerable to financial exploitation.
Mhm.
And when you're in communities where people have enough and even an excess of resources, well, they can focus on growth and development in other areas. So now the other thing, and we'll have to save it for another day, but I do want people to think about the opportunity cost of this, because the thing that sucks the most to me is the development, the fact that we're not the gospel of prosperity and religion in general, an economic plan does not make. I wish I had more financial literacy in my own life. I think I'd be irresponsible to tell y'all that for somebody with the education that I have, it isn't a damn shame that I'm not better with money. And a lot of that is just related to, I was raised in a culture with magical thinking about money. That was not understanding the practical things that needed to happen to build generational wealth. And I also realized that psychologically, emotionally, socially, when it comes to relationships and everything like that, I feel like I'm playing catch up. And at the same time, I'm learning more and more every day as an evolutionary biologist just how important development is, that there's critical windows. And so, for instance, there's something as simple as your ability to see. Your ability to see is not totally internally programmed by your genes. It also requires light in the environment, right? And there's a tragic story where we used to not remove cataracts from children because we thought that might interfere with their development, and maybe their problems would be better later on. And we could have helped them, because if we removed the cataracts, they could have light in the environment and develop that way. So that was tragic. And I think the same.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, ignorance. We didn't know. We didn't understand.
Ignorance, but it was just
We didn't understand the role of the environment. Absolutely. But I think the same thing happens emotionally and cognitively, right? When we give people magical thinking from the womb, we bypass those periods where we're supposed to learn how to emotionally regulate, how to create healthy, mutually beneficial social relationships, right? How to have a healthy relationship with work and with money. And we treat faith as though it's just a belief, and that these beliefs, especially during those critical years, like there's no cost for believing whatever we're taught versus gaining real developmental competencies over time. And I feel like I'm constantly catching up. And that's part of what I'm fighting for, is to say there's a real loss.
Yes.
There's a real loss involved. Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I mean, and I can't even just throw that at the Black community. Schools don't teach financial literacy, which is a shame. There's just a lot of skills that don't, that we're not, like life skills that we're not really imparting on our children. And so we have a bunch of adults just like running around, like trying to figure out how to get through life when, you're not running from test to test. And money is a really big one. And I part of me thinks it's by design. They want to keep us impoverished so that we're just constantly chasing the next dollar, and that we're never looking at what they're actually doing. But that's a different stream.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Want to thank everybody for coming through tonight. Really appreciate it. Love the comments. Good to see you, Michael. And, thanks for sharing your same struggles with money. Appreciate that, brother. Actually, I think Michael just put out a video today that we recorded together. So
Cool.
check that out over on Michael's channel. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and participating in the chat. Definitely want to thank the mods. Appreciate the mods. We have awesome mods. And Maya, what you got going on?
So yeah, I am. Let's just figure out where I am. I am
At my Adkisson, other side. Yeah, you're good. We can see it.
All right. Yeah, come hang out at my Adkisson on Sundays, 9:30 to 11:30 Eastern time. Wait, Jay, are you up next week?
I think so. Yes, I am. Yeah.
Right,
And we're
yeah,
doing the secularity thing.
Yeah, we have Jay Bundy on this week.
That's
gonna
right.
be a blast. And Jay, I don't think you and I will be on together, but yeah, Monday, like a week from today. Yeah, a week from today is Secular Rarities doing a fundraiser. So Jay and I will be at that.
Yep. And I'm at Pocket Locker 86, and you can find me also on Sundays, usually now around 12:30 Eastern, doing a hot program with my one black friend. So appreciate all that. Let me make sure we hit our banners here. I got to do all the Skeptic
host
Haven stuff. Yeah. All right. So don't forget to check out the other shows on Skeptic Haven. Mondays is the Black Freethinkers every other Monday. Thursdays is the Sunny Spot. Saturday is the Global Atheists, 30 and 60, and Women Atheists Unload. And the call-in show is Let's Talk on Sundays. Definitely want to thank the patrons, Paul Cammish, Karen Butcher, Hells Bells, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Jamie West, Sidney Davis Jr., Eric Zoles, Tara S., Ron D. Murphy, Dan D., Shannon Gray, Michael Wiseman,
Bash Thrasher,
Bryce, Jenna, Deborah, and Sunny Shell. Phil Calderone, Cynthia McLeod, and Kelly Laughlin. The message cut off, and then I had to look down at the ticker. Appreciate that. There's also members. I don't have the members thing in front of me, but look, all the members, we love y'all too. Thank y'all so much for supporting Skeptic Haven. We don't have enough nonprofits and organizations like this in our community, so we definitely thank everybody for their continued support of Skeptic Haven. All right, gang. Do we have anything else, Maya?
I'm good.
All right, love y'all. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Set 'em going.